All right, shalom, family. Are we back? Can you see and hear me again? Can you see and hear me clearly? Okay, we back. Okay, Sister Zahaba, can you see me and hear me? Okay, all right. I'll let everybody jump back on. See, I ain't that skilled in this yet. It's all right. It's coming. It's coming. Okay. So, um, back to First Samuel 28:15. What I was saying before is that what Saul was doing when he went to the woman with the familiar spirit. That's called necromancy. Okay, if you look that up, and that is when you go to somebody that can conjure up spirits. All right. So verse 16, First Samuel chapter 28 and verse 16. All right. Then says Samuel, wherefore dost thou ask of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee and is become thine enemy? And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me. For the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand and given it to thy neighbor, even to David, because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executed his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. So now the Lord gave a law concerning Amalek. Let's get that in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 25 and verse 17. It says, remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way when ye were come forth out of Egypt, how he met thee by the way and smote the hindmost of thee, even all that were feeble behind thee. And when thou wast faint and weary, he feared not God. Therefore it shall be, when the Lord thy God hath given thee rest from all thine enemies round about in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Thou shalt not forget it. Okay, so now that's what Samuel was referencing, but Saul didn't do that. Okay, we read that history earlier. So now I'm gonna read 1 Samuel 28:18 again. It says, because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executed his fierce wrath upon Amalek, therefore the Lord has done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. Meaning, tomorrow you and your sons are going to die. Okay, you're going to be with me. Okay, the Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Verse 20. Then Saul fell straightway all along the earth and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night. And the woman came unto Saul, and saw that he was sore troubled, and said unto him, behold, thine handmaid hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in put my life in my hand, and have hearkened unto the words which thou spakest unto me. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thine handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that thou mayest have strength when thou goest on thy way. But he refused and said, I will not eat. But his servants together with the woman compelled him, and he hearkened unto their voice. So he arose from the earth and sat upon the bed. And the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hasted and killed it, and took flour and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread thereof. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. Then they rose up and went away that night. So in 1 Samuel verse 28, chapter 28, um, we read about Saul going and inquiring of the Lord. He was not answered of the Lord, so he turned unto a woman with a familiar spirit, and then conjured up Samuel. And Samuel came up and he told Saul that because of your disobedience, that's why the Lord's not dealing with you anymore. Okay. And furthermore, he prophesied from his grave saying that tomorrow you and your sons are going to be with me. Okay. So let's go now to 1 Samuel chapter 29, verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered together all their armies to Aphek, and the Israelites pitched by a fountain which is in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed on by hundreds and by thousands. But David and his men passed on the reward with a kiss. Then said the princes of the Philistines, what do these Hebrews here? And Achish said unto the princes of the Philistines, is not this David, the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, which hath been with me these days or these years? And I have found no fault in him since he fell unto me unto this day. And the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him, meaning Achish. And the princes of the Philistines said unto him, make this fellow to return, that he may go again to his place which thou hast appointed him, and let him not go down with us to the battle, lest in the battle he be an adversary to us. For wherewith should he reconcile himself unto his master? Should it not be with the heads of these men? Is not this David, of whom they sang one to another and dances, saying, Saul slew his thousands, and David his 10,000s? And Achish called David and said unto him, surely as the Lord liveth, thou hast been upright, and thy going out and thy coming in with me in the host is good in my sight. For I have not found evil in thee since the day thy coming unto me unto this day. Nevertheless, the Lord's favor thee not. Wherefore now return and go in peace, that thou displease not the lords of these Philistines. And David said unto Achish, but what have I done? And what hast thou found in thy servant so long as I have been with thee unto this day, that I may not go fight against the enemies of my lord the king? And Achish answered and said to David, I know that thou art good in my sight, as an angel of God. Notwithstanding, the princes of the Philistines have said, he shall not go up to battle with us, or he shall not go up with us to the battle. Wherefore now rise up early in the morning with thy master's servants that are come with thee. And as soon as ye be up early in the morning and have light, depart. So David and his men rose up early to depart in the morning to return into the land of the Philistines, and the Philistines went up to Jezreel. Now, when you read this, one of the things that I took from it is they have more sense than we do. Get Sirach chapter 12, verse 10, because the lords of the Philistines said to Achish, no, he can't go to battle with us. He cannot go to battle with us because we're going to always be looking over our shoulders, seeing if he going to change his mind and go back unto his people. Sirach chapter 12, verse 10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. This is what we have to apply today, but yet the Philistines understood that. They was like, nah, we can't have him around. He might be good to you. He might be serving you, but we don't trust him. All right. Just like it's always in the hood. You always got that white boy that got his hat to the back, you know, trying to rap or something, make himself sound or talk like he one of us, or you got the white girl um that is accepted in the hood. But even the Philistines knew, don't trust your enemies. Okay. All right. Now let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 30 and verse 1. And it came to pass when David and his men were come to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire, and had taken the women captives that were therein. They slew not any, either great or small, but carried them away and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captive. And David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no power to weep. And David's two wives were taken, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. Now, I want to tell y'all something. Now, it says in verse 1 that it came to pass, David and his men would come to Ziklag on the third day, and the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire, and had taken captive who? The men, they taken David's wives, and the men that were with him, taking their families, right? Let's go back. We read this yesterday. Let's go back to 1 Samuel 27. We're going to start at verse 5. All right. 1 Samuel 27, verse 5. And David said unto Kish, if I have found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee? Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day, wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and invaded the Gershurites and the Gezrites, and the Amalekites, for those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. Okay. And David smote the land and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep and the oxen and the asses and the camels and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. All right, so they went and smote the inhabitants of the land. All right, because it was given Ziklag, right? So now what we read in 1 Samuel chapter 30, verses 1 through 6 so far was the Amalekites came back, and they smote Ziklag, all right, and took David's wives, and took the sons and daughters of the men that were with David. All right, so let's pick up at verse 7. And David said to Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, I pray thee, bring hither the ephod. And Abiathar brought thither the ephod to David. And David inquired at the Lord, saying, shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. So David went, he and the 600 men that were with him, and they came to the brook Bezor, where those that were left behind stayed. And David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 men abode behind, which were so faint that they could not go over the brook Besor. And they found any. See that? There go them daggone love bugs. Just got inside my glasses. All right. Where was I? Verse 10. 1 Samuel 30, verse 10. But David pursued, he and 400 men, with 200 men abode behind, which were so faint they could not go over the brook Besor. And they found an Egyptian in the field, and brought him to David, and gave him bread, and he did eat. And they made him drink water. And they gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit came again to him, for he had eaten no bread, nor drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights. I'm gonna say something right quick. I'm gonna say something right quick. Now they had to give him something to eat because he had fasted 3 days and 3 nights, and after he fasted 3 days and 3 nights, he was faint, right? Some of our people be like that after fasting every last Friday of the month. Hey, we gotta check our spirits, man. That's just a sidebar. All right. Uh let's see. Verse 13. And David said unto him, to whom belongest thou? And whence art thou? And he said, I am a young man of Egypt, a servant to an Amalekite. And my master left me because 3 days ago, 3 days agone, I fell sick. We made an invasion upon the south of the Cherethites, and upon the coast which belongeth to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, canst thou bring me down to this company? And he said, swear unto me by God that thou wilt neither kill me nor deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will bring thee down to this company. And when he had brought him down, behold, they were spread abroad upon all the earth, eating and drinking and dancing, because of all the great spoil that they had taken out of the land of the Philistines and out of the land of Judah. And David smote them from the twilight even unto the evening of the next day. And there escaped not a man of them, save 400 young men which rode upon camels and fled. And David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away. David rescued his 2 wives, and there was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, neither spoil nor anything that they had taken to them. David recovered all. And David took all the flocks and the herds which they drave before those cattle, and said, this is David's spoil. And David came to the 200 men, which were so faint that they could not follow David, whom they had made also to abide at the brook Besor. And they went forth to meet David and to meet the people that were with him. And when David came near to the people, he saluted them, and then answered all the wicked men and men of Belial, of those that went with David. Now these are David's men. It says all the wicked, right? Men and Belial, but these were David's men, right? It said, because they went not with us, we will not give them aught of the spoils that we have recovered, save to every man and his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart. Then David said, then said David, you shall not do so, my brethren. With that which the Lord hath given us, who hath preserved us and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. For who will hearken unto you in this matter? But as his part is that goeth down to the battle, so shall his part be that tarrieth by the stuff. They shall part alike. So those that followed and went down into the battle, we're going to split it up with those that stayed behind. Is what David is telling them. Verse 25. And it was so from that day forward that he made a statute and an ordinance for Israel unto this day. And when David came to Ziklag, he sent for the spoil unto the elders of Judah, even to his friends, saying, behold, a present for you of the spoil of the enemies of the Lord. Verse 27. To them which were in Bethel, and to them which were in the south Ramoth, and to them which were in Jatir, and to them which were in Aurora, and to them which were in Sifma, and to them which were in Eshtemoa, and to them which were in Rakal, and to them which were in the cities of the Jeramielites, and to them which were in the cities of the Kenites, and to them which were in Hormah, and to them which were in Korashan, and to them which were in Athat, and to them which were in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself and his men were wont to hunt. Okay, so the men, they went down there and they recovered everything. When we started in chapter 30, the Amalekites came into the city while they were gone up with Achish, and they spoiled the city and took David's wives and the sons and daughters of David's men and the spoils. And David and them went down there and recovered. Okay, David sought the Lord first, asked the Lord if this thing was so, and the Lord said, "Yeah, you'll go down there and you'll recover." So they went and recovered, and then when they came back, the men that were too faint to go down there, David's men that went with him, they didn't want to share. Okay, that's that spirit that a lot of our people have today. You know what I'm saying? I went down there, my hands got me this. You got to get your own. You know what I'm saying? And David was like, nah, they gonna share in the spoils. So they came back, and David made everybody share in the spoils. As you see, it says that they were the sons of Belial. He called them the damn devil. He said, y'all got the devil on y'all for even thinking like that. All right. So with that, let's go to First Samuel chapter 31. All right. First Samuel chapter 31, verse 1. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons. And the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab and Melchishua, Saul's sons. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. And Saul said unto his armor bearer, Draw thy sword, and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and abuse me. That's what you see. What he was fearful of is what you see in war. If you've seen any war movies, or even some of the news when they show some of the graphic stuff, uh, how men will abuse their captors, and Saul was fearful of that. Like they'll abuse me, they'll kill me, abuse my body. So instead of being taken captive, being a POW, he said, "Hey," he told his armor bearer, "Just go on and kill me." He was already wounded, so he couldn't get away. So he was like, "Just go ahead and kill me." But his armor bearer. So now let me read that again in verse 4. Then Saul said, then said Saul unto his armor bearer, Draw thy sword, and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. Therefore Saul took his sword and fell upon it. And when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his sword and died with him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor bearer, all his men, the same day together. Now remember what we read in 28 and 19, when Saul went to conjure up the spirit of Samuel. He said to Saul, tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. So he prophesied unto Saul about what was going to happen, and now we read in the fulfillment of that prophecy. All right, First Samuel chapter 31, verse 7. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, um, and they that were on the other side Jordan saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and fled. And the Philistines came and dwelt in them. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent it into the land of the Philistines round about to publish it in the house of their idols among the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bashan. And when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard of that which the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bashan and came to Jabesh and burnt them there. And they took their bones and buried them under a tree at Jabesh and fasted 7 days. Okay. So, chapter 31, we read about Saul and his sons and his armor bearer dying at the hands of the Philistines. Hey, I'm gonna try to catch one of these, man. They coming around hitting me now. So with that, that's gonna conclude our reading of First Samuel chapter 28 to chapter 31. Okay, so what we reading is history of Saul coming to an end. And now that we're getting into chapter 2, or I'm sorry, the second book of Samuel, we're going to be reading about, um, you know, the rise and a lot of the history concerning King David. All right, so Lord spare our lives. We will be back tomorrow, beginning with the second book of Samuel. Captain Zakar is up. All right. With that, I pray you all continue to enjoy the Feast of Tabernacles. And the closing of the feast is tomorrow evening. Okay. So, with that, I'm going to say shalom. Remember, as always, we have classes 3 times a day, 7 days a week. All right. Donate. Go to IUIC, IsraelUnite.org, and donate. Donate to the Booster Club. Trying to I'm trying to catch. Damn. These things are so delicate that if you pick them up, you might smash them. All right, I was gonna try to pick one up and show y'all, but at any rate, hey, with that, I'm gonna say shalom, family. Most High in Christ bless you all.